I'm Phil DeLuca.
I'm Nate Burgess.
And I am Sean Watson.
And we are Commanderin. Thanks for listening, everybody. We focus on the topics the community wants to hear about, and we talk to interesting people along the way. But never, ever do we talk about three banned topics: religion, politics, and Hearthstone. As always, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, and mtgcast.com by searching for Commanderin MTG Podcast.
Hey, you can find us on iTunes.
Yes.
Look at that.
Well, it's funny you mention that. You can find us on iTunes now.
So I'm guessing in the theme of the show, we have summoned up and risen from the grave Steve Jobs and begged him for forgiveness, and he's let us back on his service, yeah? Were you sorry, Mr. Jobs?
If only we were doing the zombies. If only we were doing the zombies episode this time around.
Well, he can be our thrall, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, true. We have a great show lined up for our listeners this week, don't we, gentlemen? This is the first of our Halloween specials. Vampires. Wow, I missed the memo about the spooky laugh. I'm sorry.
Is this the count from Sesame Street? I didn't watch Sesame Street.
One person watched Sesame Street. Two persons watched Sesame Street. Three.
I could do my Gary Oldman. I never play magic. See, that was I never drink wine. But no. Anyway.
Whoosh.
What do you enjoy living? Because I do so hate to take life from those who don't enjoy living.
What beautiful music they make.
Oh.
Could do Keanu Reeves in that Dracula film. Whoa, I'm an English professor.
Whoa.
My name's Jonathan Harker, dude.
Dude. Whoa.
Speaking of Dracula.
Vampires.
Whoa, he's like a vampire?
This is going to be the first of our Halloween specials. And this episode, we will focus on vampires. And we're starting our Halloween specials now. Because if companies can start Christmas in November, then I can start Halloween right booping now. But first.
As you may have heard by listening to the last few minutes of the podcast, we are back on iTunes.
Yay!
Woohoo!
Yay.
Yes, even though this is episode 20, and episode 19 already appeared on iTunes, we are actually recording this on the day we return to iTunes.
Oh my God.
I know. Oh God.
You people at home are so lucky. You're going to get a 5 to 7 hour adrenaline rush of Commanderin right into your ear holes.
Yep. In the next hour.
Ow.
All right.
Hello, UK. Good people of the United Kingdom. Her Majesty's subjects. I called us out and said none of us listen to the podcast. But some of you don't listen to the podcast. You watch the podcast on YouTube because we've had a couple of YouTube listener posts.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Megamat333. I'm presuming Megamat flipped up and got a +1/+1 counter on him. He's another UK listener. Decent podcast. Decent. Now that is English for amazing because we're all reserved. And keep it up. And then James Sheffield. Can't tell if he's from Sheffield or that's his surname. He's another English/British listener. He plans on calling Kiora Umbungo. Now, you two won't understand that joke.
That is correct.
All right.
Umbungo isn't a racist phrase. What it is a vaguely racistly advertised fruit drink that they sell in the UK.
What are you people doing over there?
Umbungo, they drink it in the jungle. The rhino picked the passion fruit, the guava and the mango, etc., etc. And it's a jungle-themed fruit drink.
Oh my.
Apparently kids love like I don't know, lions mixing pineapples into juice.
Yeah,
So I guess
there
this
you go.
next bit's me as well.
Hey, Halloween month has begun.
It has. So
It's smooth transitions like that mark us as professional podcasters.
I think our roughshod, I'm going to use the word that posh restaurants use to sell rough food. Our rustic approach to podcasting is one of our many appeals. Yeah. So,
Yes.
listener Steve Pink sent us a list of questions, guys. He was our original English listener. He was the first of many. He's new back into Commander, and he wants to build a vampire deck, vampire tribal deck. So everyone say hello to Steve. Hi, Steve.
Hello, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
So he asks a series of questions. I'll go through these very quickly, and then we'll do the episode and see if we've answered them all by the end, Pinky. So, vampire tribal, mono black versus black/red vampires. Question 2, ideal commanders for both. Question 3, what synergies or themes exist across vampire tribes? Question 4, speed versus power. Is it worth focusing on the vampires that boost to horrific levels or smaller vampires with side abilities? Question 5, ideal supporting lands, enchantments and artifacts. Question 6, the 5 cards any vampire EDH deck cannot do without. So, all very good questions.
Indeed. I think we answer all of them, don't we?
We'll check at the end, and no doubt we'll get angry emails when we get something wrong.
Yep.
Remember, address all your emails to @Ketjack on Twitter.
That would be all of your tweets, wouldn't it?
Technology, the Queen's borrowing our Twitter feed.
Yes, you can address all angry emails at cast@commanderinmtg.com.
Cast@commanderinmtg.com. You can. And we're all available on Twitter. We'll go through that at the end. So another good point here is the professor, my boss at the Tolarian Community College,
That's right.
made a fantastic video about a vampire tribal deck using Anowon the Ruin Sage as its commander. We'll discuss that better, but we'll put a link up to that in our show notes. And it's definitely, like all his videos, worth a watch. He's makes some of the best web content out there, especially video content.
We do need to start calling you the janitor, don't we?
I'll take that.
The custodian.
The custodian.
The custodian. That makes me sound important.
So we'll talk about the professor's video a bit later, but first we're going to go over our take on vampire tribal.
Yes, Nate, let's hear about the vampire tribal.
Okie dokie.
Don't worry, listeners. We're not doing the whole episode in that voice.
No, I think we should.
Well, you go ahead. EDHREC.com has a feature where you can filter decks that are considered tribal within a given creature type. Now, we don't know exactly what criteria EDHREC uses to qualify a deck as tribal, and they might not want everybody to know that. We're guessing it's based on a percentage of creature cards sharing a subtype, but we don't know what the threshold is on that. So sorting by Vampire Tribal on EDHREC, the top commander is Olivia Voldaren in Black-Red with 160 decks. And taking a big step down to number 2 is Anowon the Ruin Sage in Mono Black, 35 decks. Drana Kalastria Bloodchief is next, Mono Black, with 25 decks. Then there's Garza Zal, Plague Queen, in Grixis Blue Black Red, 17 decks. And Vish Kelle, Blood Arbiter, rounds out the top 5 in White Black with 13 decks.
He is the coolest vampire lord, though.
He's lounging on his chair with the sunglasses, yeah.
I presume it's Rowdy Roddy Piper, rest his soul, and he's wearing those sunglasses from They Live.
Oh, yes.
Right. That's good.
Yeah, that's very good. How do the British know about Rowdy Roddy Piper?
Oh, wrestling.
Oh, he is Irish, right?
He's Scottish, but well, I don't know why he's American. He's Irish in the way all you Americans pretend to be something you're not.
We're all Irish on St. Patrick's Day.
Wrestling's massive over here. Huge. WWE. Like when the Ultimate Warrior passed away last year, God rest his right-wing soul, and that was massive, massive news over here. Like, even the BBC reported that on their main feed.
Wow.
Today, on the news at 10, the Ultimate Warrior has passed away. A minute's silence for the warrior. That never happened, but you know what I mean.
I think I read a sci-fi story that you're quoting verbatim.
Where wrestlers ruled the world. But yeah, so Rowdy Roddy Blood Arbiter. Those of you that have not seen the artwork on that card, go check it out. He's clearly wearing a badass pair of shades.
We will try to find a close-up or a high-res version of that art. Maybe we can ask at Vorthos Mike on Twitter for something like that.
I like to imagine the artist just tried to shade it in, so he looked all brooding, and then when he showed the sample art to someone at R&D or whoever approves the final art on a card, he went, "I'm a bit worried the shading looks like sunglasses." And they looked at the artist and went, "Leave it, just leave it. It's so badass." And that's how it happened, but I'm sure it didn't.
Well, he looks more chilled out than Aloro, but they could both go in a Throne Tribal deck.
Okay, I found the artists up on you. I found the artist page up on DeviantArt, and I'm going to send it to our chat window here because it is ridiculously cool. There you go. That dude is really cool. I don't think he's wearing shades. I think it is a matter of shading on the eyes, but my God, that's brooding artwork.
Oh, the close-up.
He's got like war paint on his eyes.
Yeah.
Keeping it in a WWE theme.
Yeah.
When you get the close-up of that, he looks more like he's wearing Bret the Hitman Hart glasses on a closer-up image.
Yeah, he does.
Or maybe his eyes are just bleeding black ichor.
As they are wont to do. Look at us. We are so easily distracted. We are like dogs in a tennis ball factory.
Yeah, I guarantee, though, they're not bleeding black ichor from his eyes. Surely there are no other Vampire Lord or Vampire Tribal deck commanders.
There are.
What?
There are some non-vampires who are recognized as commanding Vampire Tribal decks. And
Pretenders.
There's Marquesa the Black Rose in Grixis, Teriel Reckoner of Souls in Mardu, Rakdos Oriots, and Alicia, who smiles at death, also in Mardu.
Now, Rakdos Oriots is certainly Irish.
You're right, fellas. My name's Rakdos. You're up for a bit of crack. Yes. So, but when you look at those on EDH Rec, there's like 4 decks for Marquesa, 2 for Rakdos. These are people that have tried something wacky and experimental.
Yeah, these are edge cases of those commanders who are also going on a tribal approach.
So
whatever EDH Rec considers to be tribal.
We're not going to be looking at them. We're going to be looking at the more vampire-y ones today. But there's certainly people have approached this.
Yeah,
What are vampires?
I one of my early Vampire Tribal attempts was actually, and it's since playing with Thak, but it was going to be a Kresh the Bloodbraided Vampire Lord.
Excuse me 1 minute, I need to scare my rabbits into being quiet because they've decided to suddenly try and hump each other. Excuse me.
Oh, sure.
Well, the problem with that is there are no Golgari vampires.
Right. There
are no vampires that have green in their color code.
Well, my plan was to build it red and black tribal and use the green as ramp.
So there's nothing in the green that's lending itself to the vampire theme.
Well, I didn't go very far with it.
Right, we're verging wildly into talking about green, Phil.
No, I didn't. I just said that and I let it go. But, so in Battle for Zendikar, the brand new set as we record this, there's a new vampire commander, isn't there?
Yeah, she's all right.
Oh, yeah.
As a commander. It's Drana, Liberator of Malakir. She's 1 and 2 black. She's a legendary creature, vampire ally. She's a flying first strike. Whenever Drana, Liberator, or Malakir deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control, and she is a 2/3. It's okay.
Do you have sedatives for your rabbit?
I know. I'm gonna excuse my language.
Yeah, the stats, the base stats are comparable to Vampire Nighthawk, but
Yeah.
Drana is better than Vampire Nighthawk. They both have the same casting cost of 1 and black. They're both 2/3 flying. Vampire Nighthawk has Death Touch and Lifelink. He's already pretty good. But then Drana has the first strike and the counter spew.
Yeah. She really isn't a black card. Right? Her abilities are white.
Flying is white primary ability. First strike, white primary ability.
Right? Putting counters on all of your buddies, including yourself, right?
Well, maybe any character can have those abilities if they become heroic, which is what her character is doing here.
Oh, come on.
Then why not put a pip of white mana into a casting cost and make her a gold card?
Yeah, that's a good point. That is
Yeah.
a good point.
I would totally understand it and accept it if she were 1 and white and black. Plus, it would fit into the black-white black-white ally theme that they've got going in Battle for Zendikar.
Right, she can't play Drana's Emissary in her own deck.
That's right.
Yeah, guys, I really want to send out someone to go and do some diplomatic negotiations for us, but I just can't have you on time. You're too nice. Go away. If you want a depressing half an hour, her story on Uncharted Realms, Drana's story from the BFZ storyline, is really quite depressing. About leading her people out of Malakir whilst being pursued by a sire of stagnation.
Didn't you say that it was a good story?
It's a good story, but it's well written and interesting, but it's so depressing.
Oh, see,
It's like a superhero story in Mad Max universe.
Yeah, I mean, I fundamentally disagree. I don't think, and with all due respect, I don't think that this is a well-written story.
I liked it.
Yeah, I think it does it takes a lot of shortcuts, and it does a lot of tell, not show, and it's supposed to show, not tell. And it feels a lot like the Theros block novellas were written, right? That it was written basically in the same style.
But the writer on this only has a certain amount of space, don't they, too? Right, and so perhaps the story they were trying to tell was too broad or ambitious rather than broad for the word count that they had to put it in.
No, I think there's at least one cycle where she is learning. I'm trying not to spoil this for our listeners who haven't read this yet. But I think there's one cycle of her learning process that could have been cut without losing anything from the story. So that would have tightened the story up, and then they could have added a little bit. The author could have added a little bit more detail into that. I don't know. I'm just being picky now, but that's me. And part of it is because she is definitely a white-black character in the story.
In the story she is. She's not in the original Zendikar. She's a absolute bloop in the original Zendikar.
Yeah, she's a nightmare.
Oh, she's just basically a Nazi oppressor. Basically. She treats the mortals rather than humans, like cattle. And it revels in it. And in fact, she oppresses the other vampire clans as well in the original Zendikar block. Now she's like, oh, I'm a liberator. You're all free. Well, yeah. Anyway.
And you see what it did to her.
You are free to run at that Eldrazi right there.
Go, kids, go!
You see the biggest Eldrazi? Go for it.
Which is a sire of stagnation. Not even Drana can take down the power of Dimir. But, yes.
Well, see.
So
okay, no spoilers.
No spoilers. So Vampire Nighthawk is a good comparable card, which Nate's pointed out here.
Yep. And we actually did talk about that while you were murdering your rabbits. Hey,
Incidentally, does anyone want a new pair of slippers?
Hey, Sean, do you want to explain how the first strike works with her counter spew?
Yeah, so her counter spew is...
I like that, counter spew.
Counter spew! Her counter spew... so people were playing this wrong on the pre-release, and I didn't correct them. Her counter spew happens when she deals damage.
That's right.
And because she does first strike, she deals damage before the rest of your non-first striking creatures deal damage, so she'll chuck it all out, and then you'll get the +1/+1 across the rest of her buddies. And then they will get the extra pitch of damage in. And if you combine her with a card like Necropolis Regent, she can become really powerful in a black vampire tribal. So I would probably put her in a deck. I just probably wouldn't have her as the commander.
That hits like a tidal wave.
Yeah, really fast.
She might be a tiny leaders.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. 3 mana. Yeah, she's going to be a... So if you're doing tiny leaders vampire tribal, this is your leader.
Yeah, it is.
She'd be good in tiny leaders.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, she's okay. She's all right. She's good in the deck. I really wouldn't recommend her as the commander unless you're doing weenie mono black for some reason.
Vampire allies. It might be a thing.
Yeah, we'll have to find out after Guardians of the Oath Watch, or whatever it's called. It's a terrible name for a set. Is it Oath of the Gatewatch?
It's Oath of the Gatewatch,
Yeah. I'm going to keep getting that wrong.
What do we call it? The Guardians of the Gatewatches?
Guardians of the Gate to Sea.
That's right. Guardians of the Gate to Sea.
Yeah.
There are more mono-black vampire commanders, and we'll get to those later. But first, let's look at some options outside of mono-black. And the first one we'll consider is Rakdos Control. Yeah, using Olivia Voldaren, who is the Memnarch of Rakdos, but cheaper, and it flies and can get tougher and shoot things and cause damage when it does.
I think
She's the only legendary Rakdos vampire.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, she is. I think if people go Vampire Tribal, we're looking at the EDH track numbers, this would appear accurate. This is your go-to commander. If you're sort of not trying to think vaguely outside of the box, you go, right, Voldaren's where I want to be.
Yep. And that was, almost 3 years ago now. That was the first, when I found out there were red vampires, and, after my return, my 17-year hiatus, I was like, I want to build a red-black vampire deck. And then it turned out, of course, there was Olivia Voldaren. So I am on the bandwagon, as it were.
Yeah.
So let's explain what Olivia Voldaren is, though, before we go too far into her. She's 2 and a black-red for a legendary creature vampire, 3/3. She flies, which is awesome. And for 1 and a red, no tapping, Olivia Voldaren deals 1 damage to another target creature. That creature becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. Put a +1/+1 counter on Olivia Voldaren. Oh, that is sweet in and of itself.
It's not terrible.
No, not terrible. But why would you want to make somebody else's creature? Because presumably you want to shoot all those other creatures out there, right? A vampire. Well, dear listener, it is because for 3 black, no tap, gain control of target vampire for as long as you control Olivia Voldaren. Yes. Her playtest name was Count Dracula.
And they made it into a flame-headed lady.
Yep.
This card's really good.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, she needed red hair for the red in her casting cost.
That's true. That's how that works.
Yep.
You can guess where the blue hair on Jace is.
So with Olivia, and I built the Olivia deck because apparently I wanted my vampires on easy mode.
It's not easy.
I've actually,
it's
easier.
Powerful, yeah.
Yeah, it's very powerful. With Olivia, all you have to do is you get her out, and as soon as you get her out, you can exert control over the board. That's why this is Rakdos Control. And then people are somewhat afraid to play big fat creatures because you're just basically going to steal them the next turn or the next time you have 5 mana up. After, of course, you've pinged them for 1 and made them into a vampire. I've used that first ability, that one in a red, just to boost Olivia Voldaren by shooting my own creatures.
Yeah, get a Voltroning. You can. I've killed with commander damage with Olivia before.
Yeah. And she gets powerful really fast. She easily gets up to 5/5, 6/6, 7/7 before your opponents can do much about it. Unless, of course, they have instant removal and take her out before she attacks.
You need to suit her up, though, because that important part there is you gain control of the target vampire for as long as you control Olivia. So people will be machine gunning her in the face if you control their creatures. So she needs boots or Whisper Silk Cloak or Greaves or something.
Right. Anything that grants her hexproof. And so the, what is it, General's Kabuto, the Champion's Helm, and a couple of others, I believe. Like you mentioned. Anything that grants her hexproof or even Shroud in a pinch. Because if you're going to go with the Voltron as a secondary route, then you want to be able to enchant her. What are your rabbits' names?
There's two of them. There's Willow and Buffy. And they're both at 8. They're both incredibly old and they're on their deathbeds and don't even leave their hutch anymore. They just want to lay there and slowly die. And this morning it must be some sort of rabbit shag festival. Stop it! I won't mind it, but they're both girls.
Yeah, so Captivating Vampire for 1 black creature vampire 2/2. Other vampire creatures you control get +1/+1, but also tap 5 untapped vampires you control, gain control of target creature, and it becomes a vampire in addition to its other types. So it's like a backup Olivia in a vampire tribal deck.
Right, and at that point you have a board that's full of vampires because you're going to need to tap 5 of them. It doesn't even rely on the Captivating Vampire remaining under your control. You just take it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. 5 is a big number, but remember those creatures you're controlling with Olivia are becoming vampires themselves.
Yep.
Well, a pentagram has 5 points. You can't leave one unattended.
Yeah. They come because I call. They stay because 5 of us do a ritual on them in the basement.
No, I was thinking like the Beast Caller Savant.
Yeah, I know.
I guess if this vampire were to be made in today's Magic environment, it would be totally ripped. It would have like a 6-pack, and he'd be like sweating blood almost. He'd be glistening.
Well, he's not enthralling. He's captivating.
Oh, that's true.
What's a quintessentially black creature? That's the first one that springs to your mind.
Massacre Worm?
There you go. So this guy would be ripped with a massacre worm wrapped around his body.
Yes, that's right. That's right. See, Beast Caller is ripped.
Oh, God, is he?
And he's not enthralling.
No, he stays because he listens. He's a player.
Yeah.
Player savant.
And so, for Olivia in particular, there are 13 mono-red vampires. Right? And Nate, you did the count on them. None of them are legendary. Most have a common theme where they get a +1/+1 counter when they do either combat damage to a player, damage to a player, and some of them when they do damage to a creature, don't they?
Let me check.
So, in my Olivia deck, I'll talk about red vampires happily. My Rakish Air, which is actually a card Nate's highlighted on our information in front of us, was actually the star of it. He's an uncommon Innistrad card. He's 2 in a red for a 2/2 vampire. When a vampire you control deals... So not another, he does it to himself. When a vampire you control deals combat damage to a player, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it. Really, really good. It's like that Drana Liberator of Malakir ability if you're running Tribal. Because... there you go. It's +1/+1 to all your creatures because they're all going to be vampires. The other theme I've seen with red vamps is there's a load of stuff which relies on humans and things, which was really synergied into the Innistrad block, which are kind of unplayable in Commander unless you're in a meta that has someone running particularly sort of human-heavy strategies and things. But you get double strike and haste as a sort of speed across them. So Is it Falconrath Marauders is a good example. That is a card.
Oh, yeah.
And the Blade Master. Ooh, I haven't got it in front of me. Something Marikov Blade Master, who is one of Sorin's bloodline in the story, which she has double strike, and every time she deals combat damage, she gains a +1/+1 counter on it. And because she's got double strike, that means she'll get 2 counters on it every time she attacks, because she deals combat damage twice.
Yeah, it's the Markov Blade Master.
Markov Blade Master, yeah. And
It has to be to a player, though.
it has to be, yeah, so it's combat damage
Yep.
to a player. So you need to get her through unblocked. But that's the theme with Red Vamps. It's all about sort of hyper-aggression. When I did my Olivia deck, with the exception of Rakish Air, and I think I had Markov Blade Master in there just for funsies, most of the red in my Vamp Tribal Olivia deck was just sort of backup spells. So tapping into things like what's it called? Braid of Fire. Because Braid of Fire, when it gets going, lets you shoot stuff in your upkeep step with Olivia for funsies. It's a bit of a spendy card, though, Braid of Fire.
Yeah. I think the creature I was thinking of was the Havengul Vampire, who is a real player in that art, by the way. And it's, in addition to the player doing damage to the player and getting a +1/+1 counter, it's whenever another creature dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Havengul Vampire. Yeah, so Nate, you're absolutely right. It's a theme among the red, mono-red vampires that when they do damage to a player, they get an extra counter.
Yeah, 9 out of the 13 have that ability in some form.
Goodness
2 of
gracious.
them prevent other creatures from blocking. One of them has haste, and the other has undying.
That really makes me want to play some Innistrad Draft.
That's the second time we mentioned that in as many weeks. I'll
about
do it.
that?
I'll do it with you.
Oh, and those 13 mono red, I'm not counting changeling shapeshifters.
Aw.
So if your deck needs more vampire bodies, Torian Mauler is a mono red vampire.
It is true. It is
Yeah,
true.
That's a good one. Torian Maul is a great card. Does that mean what's it called? Changeling Colossus is a mono green vampire.
Hey, see? Mono green vampires does work. Or
Yeah.
at least green vampires.
It's really a thing. So one of the best vampire cards ever printed in this, it's Rakdos in this list, which is the Stromkirk Captain.
Yeah, it is.
Stromkirk, not Stormkirk, as I always call it, because I can't be bothered to use my eyes properly. Nate, what does a Stromkirk Captain do?
1 black-red creature vampire soldier, 2/2. First strike. Other vampire creatures you control get +1/1 and have first strike.
So that's amazing. That's so good for an uncommon as well.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah,
And he's actually acting to protect humans. Look at that. In the flavor text. No longer can we allow our human populations to be mindlessly slaughtered by ghouls. Slay all who trespass. Runo Stromkirk.
so in the Innistrad story, the vampires were killing. In the Innistrad story, the vampires were killing the humans.
Yes.
The vampires were killing too many of the humans, and they were kind of, the balance was too much in favour of the monsters of Innistrad. So that's why Sorin creates Avacyn to give the humans hope and fight back against them. And of the different vampire clans, the Stromkirk were one of the only vampire clans that sided alongside Sorin and said, "Yeah, we really like food, so Sorin has a point." And this is, there aren't many Stromkirk cards in the story, Vorfos players, but he's he's probably the best one. He's so cool. So if we're talking tribal, we've mentioned Captivating Vampire, we've mentioned Stromkirk Captain. We should probably mention what a Lord is. A Lord,
Yeah, anthem effects.
yeah,
Go ahead.
Lord is any creature that gives normally +1/+1, sometimes other abilities or slightly higher stats, but it gives a anthem boost to an entire tribe of creatures. So the original Lord, or one of the original Lords, was Lord of Atlantis, and there was Lord of the Undead as well, hence them being called Lords. A Goblin King, but we don't call them kings. So this guy and Captivating Vampire are both excellent lords, and the Stromkirk, for really cheap, gives you guys First Strike, which is one of the most underrated abilities in all of Magic, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's very handy.
Okay, so there are relatively few vampires with Anthem effects compared to other creature tribes, like maybe one of the ones in our Halloween series. Oh wait, not yet. And we've already mentioned Captivating Vampire. What is that? That's so creepy.
Brains.
There you go.
He's back from the dead.
So in addition to Captivating Vampire and Stromkirk Captain, we have the Bloodline Keeper. Bloodline Keeper is really neat because it's a flip card. So for 2 and black, you get a creature vampire, 3/3, flying. That's pretty good, right?
But free flyer for 4 is average.
Yeah, it's all right. You figure Vampire Tribal, it's going to get some benefits. But wait, if you tap it, you can put a 2/2 black vampire creature token with flying onto the battlefield.
That's very good.
And for 1 black, transform Bloodline Keeper. Activate this ability only if you control 5 or more vampires. So, again, you better have a lot of vampires out, but if you do, you can transform it into the Lord of Lineage, who is a 5/5 flying vampire. That's pretty good. Other vampire creatures you control get +2/+2, and you still tap it to put a 2/2 black vampire creature token with flying onto the battlefield.
Yeah, so all those 2/2 vampires you created to flip in become 4/4s.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Still weaker than the Lord of Lineage, of course.
Yes. Because he's in charge.
He is, after all, the Lord of Lineage.
There's a couple of others that we probably don't need to talk about. There's Ascendant Evinkar, which is Krovax, who is also a legendary creature, so you could run him as a commander. He's 6 mana for a 3/3 flyer. He gives all other black creatures +1/+1, and all non-black creatures -1/-1. But if black's heavy in your meta, that is far too linear for me.
Yeah, no, you mean symmetrical.
Oh, poop! Same mistake every week. That's far too symmetrical for me.
Yeah, I don't like that or Bad Moon. And when I was building Vampire Tribal, as well as maybe some other tribals that use black, I found Bad Moon. I remember it from back in the day, and I just don't like it. It's the symmetrical effect, and that kills me. I know I've got to get over that, and I know this is probably a mark of my being a bad player, as well as a bad human being. But I cannot give other people the benefit of my cards. I'm sorry. There's a Vorthos alert here. The Ascendant Evinkar is, as you pointed out, the alternate reality version of Krovax Ascendant Hero. Another neat Anthem effect is on the Vampire Nocturnus. I have a Japanese version of this, by the way. And it's for 1 and black. You get a 3/3 vampire. You play with the top card of your library revealed, and as long as the top card of your library is black, Vampire Nocturnus and other vampire creatures you control get +2/+1 and have flying. So all those non-flying red vampires in your deck, especially if they're in your Olivia deck, can suddenly fly along with their mono black brethren.
Sometimes.
He's triple black, yeah, some of the time, because you're playing black and red. He's triple black to cast, and his ability keys off having a black card in your deck. So you can't rely on this.
Well, again, if you're playing mono black, as we'll get to, you absolutely can. Sure, land will interfere with that.
Yeah, but in Olivia,
and swamps are not technically black.
That's right. No lands are
no color.
Right. And so the biggest problem you're going to run into is land. Even looking at my Olivia deck here, I've got something like 5 non-artifact, non-land spells that aren't black. Right. So run Vampire Nocturnus. Plus, Vampire Nocturnus is, well, it's kind of mid price. It's $4.76.
Oh, he's gone up. That's because he's a mythic from an older core set. So, as I said briefly before, we missed out initially the ultimate Vampire Lord. And he's a potential commander. And Vorthos players would be going, what the hell? How come you haven't mentioned this guy? That is, of course, Baron Sengir. 5 and 3 black for a legendary vampire. He's a 5/5 flying creature. Whenever a creature is put into the graveyard the same turn, Baron Sengir damaged it. Put a +2/+2 counter on Baron Sengir. Now, that's not a Lord effect in itself, but this bit is tap, regenerate target vampire. Woo! Now, of course,
Read that flavor text, sir.
Oh, yeah. Beast, Defiler, the source of all my pain. Which is from Ishan Shade, which is a very famous old black card. And this will be probably the only card from Homelands we will ever mention on this podcast.
I don't know, there are a couple.
Yeah, there's a few real standouts, but everything
Yeah,
else
when
is
we get
just
to the Homerid show, there's Homerid spawning bed, and we'll be sure to mention that.
So this guy, though not technically a lord in that he pumps anything, he is super Vorfossy. He is the sire of the original vampires from all of Magic, which was, of course, the Sengir vampire, named after him. He's a bit spendy for a 5/5 flyer. No one will ever attack into you whilst he is on the table, and they can't just kill him because they're not going to make him a 7/7. But regenerate target vampire is quite nice.
Yeah, that's quite nice.
I have a Spanish Baron Sengir.
Of course you do.
Yeah, Baron de Sengir.
All right, so before we get into our mono black vampire discussion, there are artifacts for any tribal deck, and of course they make an appearance in our tribal vampires decks, and that's the first artifact is Adaptive Automaton, right? We all know it. It's a 3 mana for a 2/2. It's 3 mana for a 2/2 artifact creature construct, and as Adaptive Automaton enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, vampire. Adaptive Automaton is the chosen type in addition to its other types. Other creatures you control of the chosen type, vampire, get +1/+1.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
I am a vampire. Beep, boop, 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 beep. I want to drink your oil. Oil. Oil.
I demand a blood sacrifice. This is like a better version of Brass Herald, which is an artifact creature for 6 mana. When it comes into the battlefield, enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. You reveal the top 4 cards of your library when it enters the battlefield. Put all creatures of the chosen type revealed this way into your hand, the rest onto the bottom of your library, which is very nice. And creatures of the chosen type get +1/+1. So he's a lord for a type, and you can do a very green effect, which is go hunting for creatures of the type.
So it's like Mundo's ability with allies.
Yeah, I will copy an image of that into our show notes.
Yeah, I added it.
There he is.
Added it. There you go.
So Adaptive Automaton is... if you're running a heavy tribal deck rather than the theme deck, this is an absolutely essential guy in the deck. He's just a good old flat-out lord.
Oh, it's a little inefficient. It didn't make my cut.
It's only 3 mana, though.
Well, Adaptive did. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, the Brass Herald. Sorry, yeah. The Adaptive. Sorry.
Right.
The Brass Herald's too much mana. That's his problem.
Yeah, it is.
6 mana.
It's too much mana. We also have Obelisk of Erd for 6 mana. Now, this is something that's a little bit more in range. It's an artifact. It has Convoke, so you can cast it a little bit more cheaply. And as Obelisk of Erd enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Vampire. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +2/+2.
Very
Not too
nice.
bad.
+2/+2 is
Door
very
of
good.
Destinies. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say +2/+2 is a very nice anthem effect that is hard to get outside of white. So
Yeah. Door of Destinies, which if it survives, if it survives long enough, becomes an absolute beast unto itself. Door of Destinies, 4 mana artifact. As Door of Destinies enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, put a charge counter on Door of Destinies. Creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1 for each charge counter on Door of Destinies. Hey, how about that?
Yeah, this is like the tamed version of our next card.
Which is...
Coat of Arms.
Hey!
Now this is a blowout card if I've ever seen one. 5 mana for an artifact. Each creature... So this is... I'm going to get this right now. Symmetrical. Yeah, I'm learning. This is a symmetrical effect. Each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature on the battlefield that shares at least one creature type with it. For example, if there are 2 Goblin Warriors and Goblin Shamans on the battlefield, each creature gets +2/+2. So you shouldn't play this card if there's someone else also doing a tribal theme in the game.
Right.
Unless you're dropping it to attack into that player to kill them with your creatures. Otherwise their stuff gets all the bonuses as well, and they're probably going to be sitting there going, well, if I don't kill him, he's going to kill me.
Yeah, and this is one of the rare exceptions I make to playing symmetrical effects, because tribal decks aren't so common that this becomes a hindrance immediately upon casting it. Now, granted, we're doing a lot of experiments with vampires and other creatures of the night, perhaps.
Eldrazi.
And Nate, of course... Yeah, and Nate, of course, has his hated Eldrazi, and hated Goblin, and hated Rats, and hated Shadowborn Apostles.
You forgot Scarecrows.
And hated Scarecrows.
Bloop!
Oh, they hate
Scarecrows.
my zombies, too, now. And my vampires.
I like your zombies. Your zombies are
your zombies are fun.
They're fun.
But so if you're the only one playing tribal, play this card. And even if you're not the only one playing tribal, but it's a mix, like your meta isn't strong in tribal, but there are a few, play this anyway. And you always have the option of not actually casting the spell.
Phil, why don't we play like super tribal hate? I've just realised that neither of us really go heavy on the hating out tribal. Like Engineered Plague and that sort of stuff.
Oh, well, I mean, yet. Because
Nate's like, sure, play an Engineered Plague against my sodding Eldrazi tribal. See if I care, they get -1/-1.
Yeah, exactly. No, I've been looking at some ways to hate out maybe some bigger creatures that will be cast for free by one or more of the people in our meta.
Quit it.
I even pronounced it in honor of that person. Meta. All right, so
we missed Cavern of Souls.
Yes, that's a
land. And it's kind of an expensive land.
Yeah, it is.
It's like $20 or $30 now. As Cavern of Souls enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, vampire. You can tap it to add 1 to your mana pool, or you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type, and it cannot be countered.
That last bit's lovely.
Yeah, it is. Oh, and so I thought I was... when I opened my packs of Avacyn Restored, I only opened a few. I actually pulled 3 Cavern of Souls, and I'm looking at it now. And I was at first I was like, oh, this is kind of neat. And then the second one was a foil, and the third one was, just a regular one, of course. But I'm looking at the prices now. This is insane.
That's Commander. And I know I normally blame modern for things. Do you think it's modern?
This is absolutely modern, or Legacy and Vintage, where Merfolk is a thing, and Goblins are a thing. Commander doesn't have this impact on the price. But the card itself never really dropped below like $10, right? Its low point was $10, and now its median price, its low price is now $37, and foil is $90. It's basically 1 Jace.
We'll talk about
That's
Jace
insane.
in the end step, I think.
Yeah.
So mono black vampires. I actually ended up switching to a mono black vampire deck when my Olivia Voldaren deck, which was my second ever commander deck, started to slow down a bit, and people started moving towards Voltron strategies. So the commander I chose was Drana, Kalastria Bloodchief. She is 3 and 2 black for a 4/4 flying vampire, legendary creature vampire shaman. She has an amazing activated ability, which is X and 2 black. Target creature gets -0/-X into end of turn, and Drana, Kalastria Bloodchief gets +X/+0 into end of turn. So, what does this do, fellas, that other black removal spells might not necessarily be able to do?
Kills indestructible things.
There it is. This murders indestructible creatures. It's super powerful. She also boosts her own power, which means as a commander she can get through. The amount of times I've fired Drana off against one of my own creatures to get the power through to kill someone with commander damage. She's really, really, really good.
Yeah.
So I switched her out, and then because I removed her, I had to remove a lot of the red stuff. So I started putting in, and the deck very slowly evolved. You need to, if you're just going mono black, so what are the weaknesses in mono black that red doesn't fulfill? So your speed is slower in mono black, so you need to be slightly more defensive. So the deck becomes less aggressive because you're losing all your little red fast attackers. You need more sort of mid-rangey, 5, 6, 7 to cast. That's commander mid-range. Creatures which maybe got slightly more defensive abilities. So
Yeah, in black, they're going to be, in vampires, they're going to be flying.
Yep.
Most of the time, yeah. There's the odd one that's not, like the Nocturnus, but most of them are. So a champion in this deck is Necropolis Regent, which I've actually got in the show notes slightly further down, guys, in the lifelink. But so she's 3 and 3 black, so she's kind of heavy in the mono black. She's a 6/5 flyer creature vampire. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put that many +1/+1 counters on it.
Yeah.
So
It's ridiculous.
If you can get her online and get an attack in on someone, you have a board of beef all of a sudden. And she does it to herself as well. It's not another vampire. So if she goes in and hits, she becomes a 12/10, which is not an inconsiderable creature.
Yeah, I used to play this in Mimeoplasm, and eventually cut it because I started shifting more toward blue and green. But, in any deck with black in it, you should really consider running this card. And in Vampire Tribal, it's just nuts.
Yeah, it's so good. So, at that point, I started to vaguely depart away from Vampire as a tribe, but then take Vampire as a theme.
So what's the difference?
Yeah, good question. So, I think the perception of a tribal deck, depending on how Vorthosy you are, is that every creature, without exception, has to be of your tribe. So you can even play like Adaptive or Thomson because he says he becomes a vampire. Whereas I think in a theme, you look at the philosophy of what that creature's trying to do. So a card like Drain Life would be an appropriate card for a vampire tribal deck. Because what do vampires try and do? They take the life from one creature and give themselves that life force. So you could put in cards that maybe grant lifelink as well, which we'll talk about in a sec, lifelink with vampires. Then, depending on how your creature count... So, what do you think the appropriate creature count for a tribe of creatures is to make it tribal, guys? This is a question I get asked a lot, which is how many...
20 of the same subtype.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's about 20 creatures, and then it becomes then it's tribal, and it's fuzzy. But when you have 20, it's a tribal deck.
Yeah, so I agree. I think with vampires in particular, over say zombies or goblins or elves, I think a lot of the cards, the anthem effects for tribes, so the artifacts we've just listed and stuff, are less essential because your creatures tend to have a higher power and toughness anyway. Now, there are a whole host of 1/1 vampires and 1/2 vampires and 2/1 vampires because they're black. They tend to have a higher power and lower toughness. But if you look across the sort of really EDH playable vampires, you're looking at 4/4s, 5/5s, and beyond, or 3/4s, things like that. So you can actually cut, in my opinion, there'll be people that strongly disagree with me, I'm sure, but I think you can cut some of the anthem effects if you're going mono-black. If you're going mono-black, and put in stuff like that's going to really ramp up your mana. So Black Market is a fantastic mono-black card in most decks, but I cut out a lot of the anthem stuff and I put in the standard black sacrifice and mana creation package. So Grave Pact, Dictate of Erebos, Butcher of Malakir, which is also a vampire, which are all, if a creature you control dies, everyone else sacrifices a creature. So you're trying to keep the board state nice and cleared to get Drana or some of your other big beefy vampires through for a big killer hit. Black Market is whenever a creature you control is put into a graveyard from play, put a charge counter on Black Market.
No, whenever any creature.
Oh, is it any? Blooming out. Okay, it's even better than I've been playing that wrong for a long time. So whenever any creature you control whenever any creature is put into a graveyard from play, put a charge counter on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, pre-combat up main phase, so your first main phase, not upkeep at all, put 1 black into your pool for each charge counter on Black Market. So if you're running Drana, you can, and you've got no other target out, you can at least funnel the mana into Drana, kill something, and give her a power boost and get a swing off with Drana. It also allows you to power through one of my favourite vampire-themed cards, which is Exsanguinate.
Yeah.
So what do vampires do? They draw blood out of things. Exsanguinate being pig Latin for to take blood or to remove blood. So black and X. Each opponent loses X life. You gain life equal to the total life lost this way. That is. I've won games of Exsanguinate. I've lost games to Exsanguinate.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, I lost one the other night. Nate. Sodding zombie tribal exsanguinated me, cheeky bugger.
That might have been. It might have been my vampires.
No, Nate lost to Exsanguinate the other night too.
No, it was definitely Grim Grin, Nate.
All right.
Definitely Grim.
We'll talk about him next time.
What? Spoilers.
So, one of the best pieces of equipment for Vampire Tribal, moving on from... this is good in any Vampire Tribal, regardless of your colour, is Blade of the Bloodchief. Now, this particularly works well if you're running the Grave Pact, Dictate, Butcher of Malakir package. It's 1 mana for an equipment, artifact equipment. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on the equipped creature. If the equipped creature is a vampire, he gets 2 +1/+1 counters, and 2 counters instead, and it's only 1 mana to equip. So if you strap that onto Olivia Voldaren and she pings a 1/1, she gets 3 +1/+1 counters. That is horrible. I've run this card in like Garve, because it puts +1/+1 counters on. It's a permanent boost, and you can move the equipment around and the creature doesn't lose its counters. Board wipes are a big problem with Vampire Tribal, because especially the mono black Vampire Tribal, because your cards tend to be pricier guys. They tend to be sort of 4, 5, 6 mana, with the exception of a few utility guys. So do any of you guys want to... I mean, a lot of these are kind of common board wipe protection cards. Do any of you guys want to discuss them?
Well, there's the one that Nate introduced us to, I think, was Cauldron of Souls, right?
Oh,
and
what a
yeah, that's
card.
awesome. That's awesome. And for 5 mana, you get an artifact with a bunch of faces on the cauldron, and you tap it, choose any number of target creatures. Each of those creatures gains persistent till end of turn. But if you have an opponent who board wipes when you've got that out, I mean, they just deserve the punishment that's coming to them the next turn.
This happened to me twice the other day. Someone board wiped in the same player in the same game twice when I had the cauldron out. They didn't realise the first time and they forgot the second.
And if your tribe includes a lot of enter the battlefield effects, like maybe allies, for example, then everybody comes right back in at the same time and they all see each other.
Oh, they do.
Yep. And so then, one of the other cards is, 1 second.
Phil's going to have trouble saying this other card if it's the one I think it is.
No, it's Patriarch's Bidding. It's a sorcery for 3 in black. Each player chooses a creature type. Each player returns all creature cards of a type chosen this way from his or her graveyard to the battlefield.
Yeah,
How about that? No, that's... What do you mean you don't like that? That's pretty good.
I don't like that one.
It
lets everybody get stuff.
But with the exception of you, Nate, which seem to have a deep and passionate love affair with tribal as a sort of subtype.
Oh, they're neat.
How many tribal decks do you generally see? Like, if you're going to get back...
Mine.
Yeah. If I'm not playing with Nate, how many tribal decks do I see? So if you're not
Omnath Elemental.
So do you run Coat of Arms at all, Nate?
Yeah, I do. I prefer Coat of Arms over Door of Destinies because you have to build up the door, but you can just drop the Coat of Arms when you need it.
Okay, so why would you run Coat of Arms, which is very dangerous if your opponent has tribal, but not Patriarch's Bidding?
Because I can immediately use the Coat of Arms and kill everyone with it.
Well, you can immediately use the Patriarch's Bidding. It's a sorcery. It could save your life.
Yeah, but it's not about saving my life. It's about ending everyone else's life.
Okay, so presuming you're not playing another tribal player, someone Wrath of Gods wipes the table. You've spent ages building up your vampires. You've got a huge number of vampires in play. Someone Wraths. You're sitting there going, now I could wait for everyone, or I could cast this Patriarch's Bidding, put all my creatures back in, and they might get, I don't know, a couple of angels or something.
I don't want them to have anything. I just want my stuff.
Cut off your nose to spite your face there.
That's awesome. I don't want them to have anything.
But then if you're mean like that, then everybody has nothing.
No, I still have stuff.
So there's one more, and this is actually Cauldron of Souls is my favourite board wipe protection now, but this one's a good one.
No, we're done with this section.
No, there's one more, Phil. One more.
No, there isn't. I don't see anything else in here.
It's
Soul of New Phyrexia. 6 colorless artifact creature avatar. 6/6 trample. And it's got 2 abilities. They cost 5 colorless each. One of them makes all of your permanents that you control gain indestructible until end of turn. And the other one, if this guy's already dead, then you can take him out of your graveyard and exile him.
Oh, you can exile him out of your graveyard, yeah.
And permanents you control gain indestructible until end of turn.
So that's fantastic, because even if he's destroyed or have been discarded or milled or whatever, he's in your graveyard for some reason. People don't tend to check your graveyard before they hit a board wipe. And they sit there and go, bam, Wrath of God, whatever. You go, cool, all my stuff's alive. Fun times.
It's a learning process, checking graveyards.
Yeah, checking graveyards before doing that sort of thing. Yeah, he's great. He's also going up in price slowly, but as M15 is becoming scarcer to find, and relatively not a lot of M15 was opened. I've noticed UK stores are starting to sell out of Soul of New Phyrexia, which means they're not opening any more packets. People aren't trading him in. I think he's gone up. He's about £2.50 in the UK, so which means he's probably $2.50. Which normally leaves me to my beautiful bearded assistant to tell me it is how many dollars, Phil?
For what card?
Soul of New Phyrexia.
I can't find it.
Well, fine. You'll just have to find out yourself, American listeners. It's about £2.50 in the UK.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's $2.25 as of broadcast, as of recording time.
You're not saying that. Definitely not.
No.
One last thing. If you're running mono black or heavy black, there's a standard lang package you should run, really, to power things like your Exsanguinate and get your expensive cards out. I won't go into too much detail because we've spoken about before, but it's Cabal Coffers, an expedition map to go and find your Cabal Coffers, Vesuva to copy your Cabal Coffers, and Thespian Stage to copy your Cabal Coffers.
And Urborg to turn everything into swamps.
Yes, an Urborg to turn everything into swamps.
Tomb of Yawgmoth.
Don't do what my friend Pete did and order an Urborg instead of an Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth.
What a sad moment that is. Oh, that's a sad moment.
When he opened the letter with his package with his cards in, I went, I thought this card does something with swamps.
Oh, poor Pete.
Yeah. He said he thought it felt cheap. There's a reason for that. So
remember, kids, double check your Urborg orders.
Yes. So I think just Vampire Tribal, if you're going on a black, I think you can go Vampire themed. Maybe drop some of the creature count down. Go for more powerful creatures, but then protect yourself with sort of more classic mono black protections like sacrifice effects.
But you always say that.
You always say go tribal.
Well, they're more fun. And
look, you've said
you
go
don't need
tribal.
so much good stuff.
You don't need so much good stuff for that. Dictate of Erebus is like 50p. Flashbang rules.
Yeah, but if you're doing your standard mono black land package there,
that's expensive. That's why I didn't talk about it too much. The Cabal Coffers is not a cheap card, nor is Vesuva actually. The others are all right.
No, Vesuva, yeah, right. Vesuva and Cabal Coffers are expensive. Expedition Map is fairly cheap. And Thespian Stage is slowly climbing as well because Vesuva hasn't seen a reprint, so...
I would get some Thespian Stages. Thespian Stage, if someone plays Dark Depths, is hilarious, by the way.
Yeah. Well, same with Vesuva.
No, Vesuva...
No, it doesn't work with Vesuva.
It doesn't work with Vesuva. It's because you get the counters on the Dark... Sorry, we should read Dark Depths.
So Dark Depths is a legendary snowland, and it comes into play with 10 ice counters on it. So if Vesuva copies it, Vesuva comes into play with 10 ice counters on it.
Oh, right, because it's as it enters the battlefield.
Yeah.
Right.
But a Thespian Stage that's already on the battlefield and you pay 2 to tap it to turn into this thing doesn't have any counters on it. And if it does have counters, you can pay 3 mana to remove an ice counter, which would add up to 30 mana. Or if you do the Thespian Stage trick, when Dark Depths has no ice counters on it, sacrifice it. If you do, put an indestructible legendary 2020 black avatar creature token with flying named Merit Lage into play. Hello.
For 2 mana and tap, you get a 2020 indestructible flying creature. But, you know, it's very corner case. It doesn't happen that often.
Well, yeah. To tie it in, I mean, if they're playing Dark Depths, they're also playing a Vampire Hexmage, right?
That is true.
Vampire.
Exactly. And so, but if you can beat them to it, again, they are getting what they deserve.
Vampire Hexmage also is 2 black mana, kill target Planeswalker.
Yeah.
So
Or
Vampire
can kill
Hexmage-
something like Marith or Gave or Ulasht.
Anything
Not
with
that
tokens on it.
anyone with my meta plays any of those commanders.
So Vampire
could play-
Hexmage is 2 black for a 2/1 first strike, and you can sacrifice Vampire Shaman. Sacrifice Vampire Hexmage, remove all counters from target permanents. There's any type of counters from any permanent.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's great. And I think that's about our show, right? We've done Mono Black and Rakdos Vampires.
No.
So that's the... What?
There's more.
What do you mean there's more?
Oh, don't forget Aether Snap, too. That'll kill everything.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. There's also, in Vampire Tribal, there's Orzhov, white-black, and they all do lifelink. They would be commanded by Vish, Blood Arbiter. 4 colorless, white, black, black, legendary creature vampire, 5/5. He's got flying and lifelink. In fact, all of the Orzhov vamps have some kind of lifelink or life drain. He's got 2 other abilities, as Phil found out tonight. If you sacrifice a creature, you can put X +1/1 counters on Vish Blood Arbiter, where X is the sacrificed creature's power. And the other ability, and you can do either of these at instant speed, remove all +1/+1 counters from Vish. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each counter removed this way.
So this is a deck that would want to run Grave Pact, Dictate, Butcher of Malakir.
Oh, absolutely. Vishkal is a VIP in my Athreos deck.
Oh, I bet he is. I bet he is. Oh, God, he's disgusting in Athreos.
Oh, he's absolutely disgusting. He was one of the big finishers.
So, I know it's not a vampire, but I think a card this deck needs is Archangel of Thune.
Oh, yeah, I got him.
Yeah. 3.
I got a couple of angelic type of creatures.
Yeah.
See, and that's where I think... I mean, I
That's where
realize
theme
that
comes in rather
it
than
stays
tribe.
with the theme, yeah. And I just don't... I mean, Vishkal... go vampire. Or go home.
Go vampire!
But if you're running... So the two black-white planeswalkers that exist are both Sorins. And Sorin is a vampire that creates angels.
2 out of 3 planeswalkers Sorin agree on Orzhov lifelink. And both of them have a +1 ability that has lifelink in the text.
Yep. Oh, that Sorin Lord of Innistrad of his put an emblem onto the field immediately is really good.
Yeah, that's really nice.
I think you can blag some angels into that particular Orzhov deck. I used to run briefly an Angels and Vampires tribal deck
Well, let me check what I
for
got.
both tribes, using Athreos as the commander.
So I got Archangel of Thune. I have a Crypt Ghast, which is a spirit.
He's a cheap Nakana Revenant.
Yeah. I don't have Nirkana Revenant because it's too expensive. Even though
6
it's a
mana
vampire.
for a vampire that does what Cryptghast does.
Yeah. I got Deathbringer Liege, which is a horror.
It is.
I have Felidar Sovereign, which is a cat beast. Grey Merchant of Asphodel, which is a
Felidar
zombie.
Sovereign. Oh, Nate.
Yep. I've never won, though.
So-
I've won several games with that deck, but not by casting Felidar
So
Sovereign.
every time
or
I've
Test
seen-
of Endurance.
Every time I've seen Felidar Sovereign resolve, people go, I play Felidar Sovereign, I've got 100 life, I win. Or, they cheat in early and they've got 42 life. And they've put up a pillow for. Everyone just says, well done, you win. Right, let's all continue playing Magic. Put the kettle on while you're being a sad loser over there.
Aw.
I've seen that happen more than once. I've seen it happen with
Well,
Master Biomancer
I win my
as well.
games by lifelink beatdown, basically.
That's fine, but yeah, the Felidar Sovereign where you go, oh look, I've played one creature, I win. Everyone
Yeah,
just
it's an
says, we were
emergency
enjoying this
situation.
game, we're going to carry on it.
I don't know. I think that's a valid alternate win condition. And it just means that you shuffle up and get to
Depends
play
when
another
it comes
game right
down,
away.
really. I've seen it come
Yeah, but-
down turn, 3 before. And you're like, well, good for you. Well
On
done.
turn 3?
Yeah, you just need a couple of mana rocks and then you can put it in turn 3. Like,
Well, you have to be over 40 life, right?
you have to be 40 life or over, not over 40 life. So if he's not taking any damage, so first turn he
Oh.
goes Soul Ring Signet.
Yeah.
Next,
There you go.
Yeah. I've seen that
yeah.
happen. And it's like, oh
Yeah.
well done, good for you. Let's continue playing Magic.
Yeah.
I presume
Well, you don't have to
Sarah
win that way.
Ascendant. I presume you have.
I
Sarah
do have
Ascendant.
Sarah Ascendant in there. And speaking of Exsanguinate, I have Debt to the Deathless,
Oh, that's a card.
which is a double strength Exsanguinate.
Yeah, it is in black and white. Beautiful artwork on Debt to the Deathless as well. He's one of my favourite artists.
And if you need another mono white vampire body, Mirror Entity is a mono white vampire.
You disgust me.
It is a mirror. It's a mirror.
Why? I have reflection, do I not? Wait a minute. Where's my reflect? I am mirror entity, but I do not reflect.
Mirror entity should say on it, doesn't work for vampires. You're all creature types with the exception of vampire.
Yeah. Sean, you want to read the next section?
Yeah, Dimir Mills. There are 2 milling vampire legendary creatures, which is Merkavosk, Mind Drinker. He's 3 and a Dimir for a 2/4 flyer. When he deals combat damage to a player, that player mind grinds for 4 lands. And to grind as opposed to mill means to flip cards until you see a land. And then Sazdek, Lord of Secrets, who I like, but he's too much to cast. He's 7 mana. So he's 3 and 2 Dimir, 2 blue and 2 black, for flying 5/5. And if he would deal combat damage to a player, instead put that many +1/+1 counters on him, and that player mills that many cards into their library. So he gets big fast, but he's just way too much mana to cast for that effect. I'd rather him start as a 3/3 and be 5 to cast.
Sure, but I've still found him effective.
For our non-British listeners, his name is pronounced Zadek.
Zadek.
I also don't like his art. He looks too much like a World of Warcraft character. With the big big shoulders and the
pauldrons,
the pauldrons, and the holding a sword like that. That's how what the bull people in WoW called.
I mean, he could be a samurai.
Sure.
Yeah, Ravnican samurai vampire World of Warcraft character. I don't like that.
Now, Mirko Vosk looks like a vampire.
Yeah, he does. Flying over Ravnica imperiously as it burns below him.
And he's totally ripped, too.
Oh, yeah. He could give the... well, he's not quite at Beastmaster Savant levels of ripped, but he's got those leather trousers. He could... If you saw him in the film The Lost Boys, he wouldn't be out of place, would he?
No, he's not.
It looks like he's got Batman bracers.
He does. Just one. Brace.
Oh. He is the Batman.
Now, Bloodchief Ascension is a fantastic card for mill decks, or any vampire deck, really, because it's very vampire themed as well. It will paint a massive target on your head. This is a card you should learn how to sandbag properly. So at the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you could put a quest counter on Bloodchief Ascension. Whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, if Bloodchief Ascension has 3 or more quest counters on it, you may have that player lose 2 life, and if you do, you gain 2 life. So, if you
it makes board wipes so wonderful.
It does. It makes a mind grind. The spell mind grind, just horrendous. It'll end a game if you've got mind grind in your hand. So if you turn 1 swamp, tap, Bloodchief Ascension, you're setting yourself up to get punched in the face over and over again by your opponents. Don't do it. Just hold it in your hand. It's only 1 black to cast, and then wait till you've got defensive board set up, so you can wait till you've got a safe position on the table. You can drop it, let the table wheel, maybe have something out that's going to do a bit of damage to everyone, so you can get the quest counters on it before it comes back to you, and then do a spell that's going to murder everyone with it.
Well, I don't know. The other night, I played Bloodchief Ascension in one of the first 2 or 3 turns, and there were so many bigger threats, including was it you, Sean?
You've not played that against me, Phil.
No, that's right. It was then Nate and friend of the show, Nick Jaragoski.
Hi, Nick.
And they just went at it back and forth, and I just put in a counter. But they were the much bigger threats. I mean, I was playing, some lame... What was I playing? Some lame Olivia deck, right?
I don't remember. Weird. You were paced beneath my feet.
Don't you just...
Oh, in that game?
Maybe.
We play so many games, listeners, that we lose track of what we've done.
Don't you just love it when you become particularly in 3-player games more than 4, but when you're the player that the other 2 players are ignoring and they're just knocking 7 shades of boop out of each other? That is a beautiful situation to be in. The other night, Nate and listener Pete, were just beating the hell out of each other, and I'm sitting there setting up a control board. And now I did end up losing, because I didn't get the board wipe I needed but to when they killed each other, sort it out. But it's so much fun just going ha 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 ha. But Bloodchief Ascension is a subtle card. If someone drops a Bloodchief Ascension, be very wary of what they're planning to do, listeners. It's quite a spendy card as well now, isn't it? It's gone up.
Yeah, it's just over $4.
It's gone up. But yeah, vampires. I think if you're doing a mill deck, your primary theme needs to be mill, not vampire tribal. But if you're super Vorfossy, you can actually thread a secondary vampire sort of theme into the deck, which then again ties into theme versus tribal.
But if you're making a mill deck, you probably have Mirko Vosk in it.
I do
And
in my
Bloodchief
Lizard
Ascension.
deck. I do in my Lizard deck. So I think I've come to it. Tribal is when your creatures are heavy. Theme is when a keyword or an ability is heavy featured in the deck.
Can you be one without both?
Yeah, I think you can. I think that Goblin Tribal doesn't have a theme. Its keyword is I punch you in the face with a ton of little dudes, which is hard to put as a keyword. So, for example, Vish Vampires, I think, is a vampire-themed lifelink deck, whereas Olivia Voldaren is a vampire tribal deck. I mean, it's just my opinion. It could be utterly wrong, like most things I say are, but...
Well, maybe we'll correct it in the next episode.
Are there any other vampires that would go in here, Nate, in particular? Maybe a mono blue vampire.
Are you talking about Shapesharer?
Shifter. Oh, is it Sharer? God, I got that one. Yeah, I am talking about Shapesharer. Yeah, that's weird.
Shapesharer, 1 and a blue, creature shapeshifter, changeling. 2 and a blue, target shapeshifter becomes a copy of target creature until your next turn. So for 3 mana, your Shapesharer or any other handy shapeshifter can become a creature.
It can be your Prophet of Krufix until
That's right.
my next turn.
Mm-hmm.
You can also, you've got access in the Dimir deck to lots of clone cards. Clone effects are very good. And obviously you can clone vampires if you desperately want a vampire.
So my Vishkal lifelink deck has 23 out of 34 creatures are vampires.
Wow, that's excellent. Let me count mine. Let's see. My Olivia has 33 vampires.
That's
that's
definitely
much.
tribal.
Out of
How many
34
creatures?
creatures. 34.
Oh, wow. All right.
My only tribal deck has...
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It has 34 out of 34. I have a placeholder in there that's actually... I haven't updated the list since Drana came out. So, yeah, 34 out of 34 creatures, vampires.
My only tribal deck has 14 out of 29 Eldrazi. But, you know, I think each Eldrazi counts as 2 creatures. So.
Yeah. Wow, I don't even have staples in here. Like, I don't even have adaptive. I do have adaptive automaton in here, but I do not have our sad robot friend.
Ah. So I've just realised what happened with my decks. Phil, you won't like this. I started off with an Olivia Voldaren deck, second ever deck I built. That got turned into a Drana Kalastria Bloodchief deck. That then evolved into a Sheldred Whispering One deck.
Oh, lovely.
When I just wholesale abandoned vampires as a theme and just went, I'm just going to go for black good stuff.
So surely that is the last of our vampire commanders.
Surely it is.
No!
What? No.
Oh my god.
Who do we have then, Nate?
No, there's Grixis too.
What? Grixis?
Grixis. There's Garzazal, Plague Queen, 4 colorless, blue, black, red, legendary creature vampire, 5/5, flying and haste. And whenever a creature dealt damage by Garzazal, Plague Queen, this turn is put into a graveyard. put a +1/+1 counter on Garzazal. That's like the Sengir, Baron Sengir kind of damage.
Yeah, Sengir Vampire.
Yeah. And also, whenever Garzazal deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card.
Yep. So that's got... Has it got a red ability? Haste. Check. Has it got a black ability? Vampirism. Check. Has it got a blue ability? Draw a card. Check. I do like the way they used to design gold cards. Very simple. Does it do everything that its colours can do? Yep. Put it out.
Yeah, so she looks like an expensive Voltron beatdown commander that gives you options in your color identity.
Yeah, she's like a poor man's Thraximundar. Oh, the card draw is very nice.
Yeah. I think I put the best art for her in
I was just looking at that.
in the show plan too. There's an altar by who is it? Itoinez? I'm not even sure. Itoinez. Yeah, at itoinez.com. And altered her to look like Gene Simmons from Kiss, which is pretty remarkable. It has the axe and all. It's great.
It's wonderfully done, but the original art does lend itself beautifully to this alt.
Yeah, by Daryl Reish. Is that the art?
Yeah, I think so. It's very... The original art, not the Gene Simmons one, is very... Like, I know it's Cold Snap, so it was harkening back to an older time Magic, but it looks like an old... Like, you wouldn't be surprised if that piece of artwork was in Legends as a set, would you? Or Homelands or Alliances.
Would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, the background's flat. There's no majestic terrain behind her.
Yeah.
Yep. In our chat, I've included yet another altar. All right.
Yeah.
All right. By God, are we done?
One last bit, which is
one last bit
a few
for Garzazal.
No, not for Garzazal, but for
Jaleva is certainly a Grixis vampire, but she's her own woman and needs no help from lesser broodlings.
That's true.
She's
unless
not
it's a
wrong.
mill deck.
If she's the commander of your Vampire Tribal deck, you're doing Vampire Tribal wrong.
Yeah, there's no vampires. Go ahead.
Who am I to tell you what to do with your deck? But, you know, there are better choices for Vampire Tribal than Jaleva.
Yeah, there are no Golgari vampires. No vampires have any green at all.
Well, that's not true. We already established that the Chameleon Colossus is a vampire.
Okay, yeah, sure. So there's the one.
So are there any staples for the tribe that we've not mentioned, guys?
Well, there's Bloodghast, which I missed the trigger for several times in the last game I played with it.
Key card in my Jared deck, Bloodghast.
Yeah, I mean, it's great because you sacrifice the Bloodghast and then you play a land and you bring it right back and then you sack it again.
It's even better if you sack it once you've strapped a skull clamp to it.
Yeah,
you don't need to sack it; it just dies.
It just dies. Yeah. And I think Nate is the one who pointed out Blood Tribute.
Yeah, we've talked about that one before.
Yeah, we've mentioned that several times.
Yeah, it's 2 black, and opponent loses half their life, and if you have an untapped vampire, you can tap it to gain that life.
Yeah, that's a big life swing for 6 mana.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. And of course, the artifact Blade of the Bloodchief goes in this because it's just sweet equipment, and it's sweeter equipment when it's strapped onto a vampire.
Yeah.
Although it's approaching $3 for its median price because it wasn't reprinted as expected.
Yet.
And what the heck is Drana pointing if not the Blade of the Bloodchief? But whatever.
I need to look at the Drana artwork now. I know.
Well, you're familiar with this next topic, right? The professor's video?
The professor at Tolarian Community College recently made a video
Hi, boss.
on Vampire Tribal EDH. And mono black Anowon the Ruin Sage, who is 3 and 2 black, legendary creature, vampire shaman, 4/3. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player sacrifices a non-vampire creature.
Ugh.
So, if you're playing him, you probably should have a lot of vampires as a high percentage of your creatures.
Yeah. Have either of you played against an Anowon deck?
I have played against an Anowon deck, and it feels just like playing against a Sheldred deck.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah, he's budget Sheldred, basically. So if you want to do a Sheldred type sacrifice themed deck, and also keep it vampires, he is fantastic. He's also a great character in the story, Anowon. Like he's like a false prophet. He paints himself as a savior, and he's actually a secret vampire trying to corrupt Zendikar from the shadows.
All right.
And that scroll he's holding in his hand, can you see in his artwork? He's holding a scroll on a rope. Oh, he's holding two. Those are the scrolls that Chandra steals and then runs to Ugin's Sanctum, which ultimately lends to the Eldrazi being unleashed.
Aha.
Yeah, they're the maps to where the Eye of Ugin is.
Yep. Okay, and so in his deck he's got the, of course, Drana, but also Kalitas, the Bloodchief of Get. How did that work out for the Get, the vampires of Get?
I think Kalitas had too high of a converted mana cost to win that battle. He's got a warm smell, though.
Yep. Right up there with Eldrazi, but with none of the real panache. And of course, with its ability to destroy target creature, that doesn't work so well against indestructible Eldrazi.
Yeah, well, he ends up becoming Ulamog's puppet, doesn't he? In the story.
Sure.
His pawn?
He's not the pawn, he's still Kalitas, but basically Drana oppresses the vampires of Get so much, the clan, the tribe of Get so much that he sees no other way to save his people but to just say, yeah, I'm going to choose what he considered the lesser of two evils, which he went for Ulamog, which is quite... How bad was Drana if Ulamog is the lesser of two evils?
Well, it's more that, he's just trying to get her off his back.
Yeah, but Ulamog, I want to be mindless drone.
Yeah, well.
Some people make bad choices, listeners. Bad choices.
Yeah, that's ambition for you.
Well, speaking of Pawns of Ulamog, his deck does include a card called Pawn of Ulamog, which is 1 black creature vampire shaman, 2/2. Whenever Pawn of Ulamog or another non-token creature you control dies, you may put a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token onto the battlefield. And you know what it does. You sacrifice it to add 1 to your mana pool.
Yeah. I cut Pawn of Ulamog from my deck, and maybe that's to my detriment, but I just didn't see that it was necessary.
Are you running the Grave Pact package?
No.
See, that's where he's good, because you get a free instant speed to trigger your Grave Pact with your spawn. I think if you're not running that, he's alright.
Yeah, and he is definitely running the Dictate of Erebos and the Budget Grave Pact. We'll include a link to this show. Oh, and he is running staples, and I include these in my deck as well, the Blood Artist and the Falconwrath Noble. Right, both of them are whenever this creature or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. That's really useful because, especially mid to late game when creatures are just dying all over the place. Let's say you're playing somebody who is also sacrificing elementals to do 3 points of damage. It's almost like 4 points of damage per elemental. The ultimate Planeswalker to put in any of our vampire tribal decks or vampire themed decks is Sorin Markov. Nate, you really like Sorin Markov, don't you?
Sorin Markov, he's 3 and black. He starts with a loyalty of 4, and it says -3. Target opponent's life total becomes 10. And that's all you really need to know.
That's all that really needs. And then you have the +2 is just basically a countdown from there. It's an accelerant from there. What did the professor have to say about Soren Markov?
Quote, his ability to change any opponent's life total to 10 is just delicious.
Mm-hmm.
So says the professor.
All right.
And he also does advocate the Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond infinite combo. They are both thematic to vampire tribes.
Yeah, they are. And it's a good way to really end the game, especially if the game has been going on really long. You just drop the infinite combo. Now, we play in our meta, and the folks that we've kind of started including friend of the show, Nick Jarokoski, we generally don't play infinite combos. Now, Nick comes from a meta where that is not a problem at all. But we don't often see an Exquisite Blood and Sanguine Bond on the table at the same time. Okay. And so Sean is off dealing with the Child of Alara. But did we answer Steve Pink's questions?
Well, let's see. We covered that there was more than just mono black and black red. And I will say that white black Vish call works.
It
definitely
works. Yeah. I think I kind of think that black red vampires is probably a better choice than most of the mono black vampires.
A better choice for a vampire tribal?
Like if you're trying to make something that's absolutely going to control and dominate the board. And even though it has the control that's almost secondary, but still, it's really effective. I think black-red wins out over mono-black.
Would you take blue-black-red over black-red?
Not with
Garza's all play queen?
Not with Garza's all play queen. I mean, and that's one where just thematically I might even run Jaliva because why not, right? But no, I think I'd rather do black-red than Garza's all, that's for sure.
There's another awesome card. I don't know if we should read them or just look them up. Let me see. I think it's Blood Tyrant.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of text on him, and he's a big flying, trampling beater with a very expensive mana cost, but he gets counters stacked up on him and stuff.
Oh, yeah, look at that. That's a Grixis vampire. That's pretty good. I don't know. I suppose you could do Grixis vampires. He does. Oh, man, but look at that. Let's read him. For 4 and blue, black, red, he is a Blood Tyrant is a creature vampire 5/5. At the beginning of your upkeep, with flying trample, as you said, at the beginning of your upkeep, each player loses 1 life. Put a +1/+1 counter on Blood Tyrant for each 1 life lost this way. Whenever a player loses the game, put 5 +1/+1 counters on Blood Tyrant. That's pretty good.
Yeah, he gets counters on him quick. But, yeah, he costs 7.
Yeah, it does cost 7. But in a 3-player game, on his if you untap with him, he's a 7/7. Flying, trampling.
No, each player. So it's you too.
That's right.
You're losing a life as well.
If you untap with him, he's an 8/8 flying, trampling creature. That does not suck on the first turn. That's at the very least a Path to Exile magnet, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I don't know. I still, my vote is still black-red vampires.
So the ideal commanders for both, you would say Olivia for black-red?
Well, she's the only one, right? She is the only one. She has an advantage there.
Yeah. Vish Kal is the only one in white-black.
Yeah.
You could go Mirko Vosk or Sadek if you're going mill vampires in Dimir.
Yeah.
And mono black, that's the question.
Yeah, for mono black, I really think it's something like Anowon, which forces the sacrifice, and he's only 5 mana. It's really, really difficult to come back from that if your opponent can kind of wipe the board, and then just start deploying creatures with Anowon out.
Yeah.
Drana is not bad at all. I think that of the two, Anowon triggers that in instant sacrifice, whereas you still have to spend mana for Drana to do her thing. And I can hear Sean raging in the background, of course, dealing with the Child of Alara right now. So, Nate, what synergies or themes exist across the vampire tribes? Did we cover that?
We got the Orzhov lifelink. I don't know that I would say Rakdos has a control theme. It does have a biting a player to get a counter theme in the red vampires.
Yeah, I would say it only has a control theme in that Olivia has a control feature on her.
Yeah. And mono black, I guess the theme is big flying beaters. Yeah, they drain life sometimes. What else we got?
Sorry, I was looking
And
something
he's
up.
back.
Right, and so in terms of speed versus power, is it worth focusing on the vampires that boost?
Well, Sean, what synergies or themes exist among mono black vampires?
So, themes and synergies. So you're looking at flying is a theme. So you're looking at that's going to be your evasion. Synergies, +1/+1 tokens get distributed around a lot. And sacrificing creatures for your advantage is a theme that's more because of the mono blackness than the vampireness. But I think it's going to be hard to build mono vampires without building in a sacrifice advantage sort of sub theme into your deck, which you can probably get rid of in red black vampires, because red black you replace it with speed, like attacking.
Yeah.
Did I say something really profound? I didn't realise it. I think because having a conversation with Mr Pink, because initially he was building a standard deck, well not standard, a sort of 60 card Magic deck for funsies, and was getting the hell beaten out of him, but he had a whole ton of like Necropolis Regents and stuff. So I said, well, in this kind of format, you need to look at smaller creatures, faster attacking, really go aggro with it if you're going Vampire Tribal for that.
Right. Drana Liberator and Vampire Nighthawks all over the place.
Yeah, and like some of the red ones. And obviously he didn't have the the constraint of needing a commander in that format. So I said, really, if you're playing multiplayer Magic, look at our format. And selling commander and trying to promote the format.
Yeah, but we talk about cards with big mana costs that they can't really work with.
That's what I'm saying. I think this is sort of moving on to his fourth question, which is speed versus power. I think, weirdly, in Commander, you can have both. But if you're going for mono black, you should look more at the power because it's not particularly fast.
Well, if you're going for speed in terms of smaller creatures, then there's plenty of utility creatures, but you're not going to kill people in Commander with a bunch of small creatures.
No.
Unless you're doing a team boost or something that makes them all lethal.
Yeah, so that's where you go for your coat of arms, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I would look at power. So I would look at your CMC range. Really should be looking between 5 and 7 for your creatures on that mono black. And then obviously every deck, regardless of what format, needs some cheaper utility drops. But you're more looking at ramping effects, mana rocks, that sort of stuff to be able to power into your quicker creatures. To your bigger creatures rather than quicker creatures. Sorry. Yeah. I would err on the side of power.
Yeah, as would I. I think it's power over speed, especially in Commander. So ideal supporting lands, enchantments, and artifacts, even though it's misspelled.
Yeah, it's because it auto-corrected to that way. So there's the mono black land package, but it is expensive. So if you're running on a budget, do you know there are a lot of good budget dual lands out there that are 50p? Dare I say Guild Gates?
No.
dare I say.
Come on, there's never a reason to use a guild gate.
But I'm looking purely at a budget. So if you're looking at 5 cents or less.
Yeah, okay. If you're looking for 5 cents or less, then all you're going to find is guild gates. But
those things like the refuges, so Akun Refuge is a red-black one. There's another, Bloodfell Caves is another one. So some of the budget dual lands. If you want to be spendy, go invest. Cabal Coffers is always worth investing in if you like playing black.
It really is.
The last time I checked it was about $16, but it shifts in price quite a lot. So, some cards shift in price a lot more than others. It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Cabal's one that moves up and down a lot. Currently it is, I'm just looking, $12.34. So there you go. It's gone down since last time I looked. It's definitely worth investing in one. Vesuva, less essential, but is a handy one. Thespian Stage. I'd buy a few Thespian Stages while they're still cheap.
So in addition to that, if you want some recursion, there's Volrath's Stronghold and Mortuary Mire.
Yeah. And those are both good cards. Volrath's Stronghold, a little bit pricey. Not quite a Vesuva, but still kind of pricey. And Mortuary Mire, of course, was just released. It's a common card, so we'll see billions of those. Nate, what are the 5 cards a Vampire EDH deck can't do without?
Oh, golly. So let's see. I'd put in Bloodline Keeper is a good standard.
Same.
The Bloodghast, the guy that keeps coming back with landfall, he's solid.
If you're running a sack engine, yep.
Blood Tribute for flavor and because it's awesome.
It is awesome.
What else do we got?
I would say Blood Artist.
Yeah, he's a good one.
Yep, it's a little trickle of life gain. I'm very partial to Vampire Nighthawk.
Yeah, he's good, but if I'm going for my last slot, I'd have to go with the Planeswalker for flavor.
Yeah.
Then
Which one?
Soren Markov.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's in pretty much every Vampire tribal deck that I brewed.
It's gotta be.
Yeah. I also include where is she? I was fortunate. I picked up a Nirkana Revenant a while ago.
She's so expensive to cast, though.
Well, yeah, but once you cast her after you've basically played a Cryptghast, which is one of my others. Now, granted, that's not Vampire Tribal, but a Cryptghast is a pretty useful card in any kind of mono black deck.
Yeah, I noticed in the Professor's mono black deck he included a Cryptghast, but not the Nirkana Revenant, which is a vampire.
Yep. Yep. Again, because it's pricey both in terms of mana and dollar pounds. And then I even though it's difficult, it's somewhat off theme. The Necropotence is a card that goes in every black deck.
I'm back.
And so, Sean, what are your top 5 inclusions in a vampire theme deck?
Oh, in a vampire themed deck, Exsanguinate. I would run in every single one. Soren Markov, just because he's super themey and super powerful. Mm-hmm. I would always run Vampire Nighthawk. He is, for 3 mana, one of the best black creatures, full stop, let alone a vampire. I would always run Dictator Erebos. Even if it's the only sacrifice outlet in the deck, I would still put one in. I would always run Blade of the Bloodchief.
Right.
Because it's just fantastic. Blood Tribute as well.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute stone cold staples.
All right. That's great. This is the longest episode, so we'll try to keep this short. We have a message of the week, though, don't we?
Oh, yeah. My message of the week, I think I'm going to start a theme where my message of the week is going to be cards that Phil hates. So this one, for the vampire theme, Irini Sengir. She's 2 in black, and I believe she's a vampire dwarf legendary creature. She's a 2/2, and white enchantments and green enchantments each cost an additional 2 colorless to cast.
You know, that cruel being brings shame to all her fellow dwarves and misery to all the land. She is Sengir's daughter in spirit, if not in blood.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty terrible card. You shouldn't play that. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Dwarf vampire isn't a creature strap that is on a lot of cards.
Yeah,
All right.
she's got flavor.
Yep. Baron Sengir agreed. Badoom.
Hey!
Hey!
Nom, 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 nom.
All right. And that's the last of our messages, right?
I believe so. I've got
All right.
nothing that's magic related other than go and suck some blood.
So stay tuned, everybody, or rather come back next week for the next in our Halloween series. You'll never guess which monster tribe is coming next. Although we may have dropped a few hints here and there.
Where? It's very subtle.
Brains.
Very subtle
Like a
ones.
ninja.
Brains.
So,
It's
I
Kitkin
love
tribal, isn't it,
brains.
Phil? Kitkin tribal.
oh yeah, Kithkin Tribal's a thing. We'll get to that.
No.
Yeah, that's like Christmas time. That'll be our holiday episode. All right. We love our listeners.
Yes.
If you're fun. Oh, wait, not if you're fun. What am I saying? You're fun. You tell us what you think and even play test decks with us. Please, take the time to contact us. And if you really like us, give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, especially now that we are back.
5 wonderful stars.
5-star rating. It makes us feel better, as if we were alive again. And we can point to it and say, hey, look at that, to the people who care about such things. Our theme song was created for the podcast by Nate Burgess.
Surely you mean Count Nate Burgess.
Our logo was created for the podcast by Mr. Picto. Google him. That was a little Boris. With assistance from Kelle DeLuca. Special thanks to our tech whizzes, Jessie, Thomson, and Graham Frank.
Graham Frankenstein. Meh.
You can reach us by going to our website, Commanderin MTG.com.
Oh. Like a bit of jabber there.
Yeah. Our email is cast@commanderinmtg.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, the YouTubes, mtgcast.com, and Reddit by searching for Commanderin. I can't do it. Commanderin MTG Podcast. Individually on Twitter, I'm @Ketjack.
I am at Copain. I cannot do it. I got French. Hello. I'm going to be a French vampire. Hello. I'm Spanish now. What's wrong with me?
Mirko Vosk.
And I am Copain 26. Hey, you want a pizza? No garlic though, please.
Oh, God.
I am Mr. Plorg.
God. And we are all available for voiceover work. Our accents are par excellence.
I am available for doing any Italian, Welsh, French, German vampires.
Oh, God. That's the end of our show. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Right, thank you for listening. And that's our show.